Hey there! Welcome to the place where stories come to life. Whether it's a wild adventure, a tale of the heart, or something a little more out of this world, you've found the right spot. Here, we dive deep into the art of storytelling, exploring every corner of imagination, from the everyday to the extraordinary. I'm Winston, and each week I'll be sharing stories that entertain, inspire, and maybe even make you think twice. From personal experiences to fictional worlds, every tale has a lesson, a twist, or something that'll make you look at the world a little differently. So, sit back, relax, and let's start a new adventure together. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for a story that's ready to unfold every week. All right, let's get into it. Got a story for you today that I'm pretty excited about. This is about Kaelen, a cartographer's daughter and the shadow collector.
The scent of old paper, beeswax polish, and something indefinably ancient clung to Alara like a second skin. She was born into it, raised amongst the sprawling maps that lined the walls of her father's workshop in the remote coastal town of Ethelgard. Old Man Tiber, they called him, a cartographer of renown, though he hadn't ventured beyond Ethelgard's cliffs in decades. He charted not just land, but currents, constellations, and whispers of forgotten places, lost histories, and the strange energies that pulsed beneath the world. Alara wasn't meant to inherit his craft. She was a daughter, yes, but also a distraction from the loneliness that had consumed her father after her mother vanished at sea 15 years ago. He taught her to bind books, to mix inks, to recognize the subtle shifts in parchment quality, but always kept the true heart of his work, the charting of the veil, locked away. The veil was what he called the liminal spaces between realities, places where the boundaries thinned and echoes of other worlds bled through. He believed these places held power, knowledge, and danger. He warned her constantly, "Never seek beyond the known, Alara. Some doors are best left unopened." But Alara had always been a seeker. The storm arrived with the ferocity of a wounded beast. 3 days it raged, battering Ethelgard's stone walls and churning the sea into a grey fury. Then, as abruptly as it began, it ceased, and with it came him. He washed ashore, clinging to wreckage that bore no markings Alara recognized, not from any ship she'd ever seen in port. He was tall, lean, with hair the color of storm clouds and eyes like polished obsidian. His clothes were strange, woven from a dark, almost shimmering material, and he carried nothing but a single, intricately carved wooden box. Old Man Tiber, usually stoic and reserved, practically dragged the man into the workshop, muttering about signs and the turning of tides. The stranger was unconscious, his skin cold to the touch. Alara tended him with quiet efficiency, cleaning his wounds, brewing herbal teas, and watching him sleep. He wasn't like anyone she had ever encountered. There was a stillness about him, an almost unnerving calm that belied the violence of his arrival. When he finally awoke, his gaze swept over her with an intensity that made her breath catch in her throat. Where am I?" His voice was rough, laced with an accent she couldn't place. "Ethelgard," Alara replied, offering him a cup of tea. "You were shipwrecked during the storm." He took the cup, his fingers brushing hers. A jolt ran through her, unexpected and unsettling. "Shipwrecked is a simplification." He paused, studying her face. "My name is Kaelen." Kaelen was evasive about his past, offering only fragmented stories of a distant land called Eridor, a place ravaged by shadow and ruled by a tyrannical king. He spoke of collectors, individuals who hunted down remnants of lost power, fragments of reality torn from other worlds. He claimed to be one himself, though he refused to elaborate on what he collected or why. Old Man Tiber, surprisingly, seemed fascinated by Kaelen's tales. He questioned him relentlessly about Eridor, its geography, its history, and the nature of the shadow that plagued it. Elara watched them, a growing unease settling in her stomach. Her father was probing too deeply, asking questions he shouldn't be asking. As Kaelen recovered, he began to help Tiber in the workshop, his skill with intricate detail proving invaluable. He had an uncanny ability to restore damaged maps, bringing faded lines back to life with a precision that bordered on magical. One evening, while searching for a specific ink pigment, Elara stumbled upon a hidden compartment behind one of the bookshelves. Inside lay a collection of maps unlike any she'd ever seen. They weren't charts of land or sea. They were depictions of swirling vortexes, shimmering landscapes that defied logic, and constellations arranged in patterns she didn't recognize. These were her father's veil maps. And amongst them, tucked away at the very back, was a map, marked with a single ominous symbol, a black spiral within a crimson circle. "What is this?" she whispered, tracing the lines of the spiral with her finger. Kaelen appeared behind her, his shadow falling across the parchment. His eyes narrowed as he studied the map. "That's dangerous." "Dangerous how?" He hesitated, then sighed. "It marks a nexus point, a place where the veil is exceptionally thin, a gateway to another world." "Another world? Like Eridor?" Kaelen nodded slowly. "But this one isn't charted for a reason. It's known as the Obsidian Labyrinth, and it's said to be guarded by something ancient and malevolent." He explained that nexus points were incredibly unstable, prone to collapsing or unleashing unpredictable energies. The Obsidian Labyrinth was rumored to hold immense power, but also to drive those who entered mad with its illusions and horrors. "Why? Did Father hide this?" Elara asked, her voice trembling. Kaelen's gaze met hers, his expression grim. He knew it existed. He likely feared someone would try to open it. The peace of Ethelgard was shattered when a ship arrived bearing the crest of Lord Valerius Thorn, a notorious collector known for his ruthlessness and insatiable hunger for power. Thorn had been searching for Tiber for years, drawn by rumors of his unique cartographic skills. He wasted no time making his intentions clear. He wanted access to Tiber's workshop, specifically his charts of the Veil. Tiber refused, citing the dangers involved. Thorn responded with thinly veiled threats, hinting at consequences for those who obstructed him. Elara noticed Kaelen growing increasingly agitated during these encounters. He would pace restlessly, his hand instinctively reaching for the wooden box he always carried. One night, she found him studying a series of symbols etched into the lid of the box. They were intricate and unsettling, resembling twisted branches and shadowed figures. "What are those?" she asked. Kaelen flinched, quickly closing the box. "Nothing, just old markings." But Elara had seen enough to know he was lying. She pressed him further, demanding an explanation. Finally, he relented. The symbols were a collector's mark, a sign of allegiance and identification within their secretive order. He explained that collectors weren't simply hunters of power. They were guardians, tasked with preventing dangerous artifacts from falling into the wrong hands. "Thorn is one of us," Kaelen said, his voice heavy with regret. Or rather, he was. He became corrupted by the power he sought, abandoning our principles and embracing darkness. He revealed that Thorn was obsessed with opening nexus points, believing they held the key to immortality and ultimate control. And he suspected that Tiber's map of the Obsidian Labyrinth was what Thorn had been searching for all along. Thorn's patience finally snapped. He ordered his men to raid the workshop, ignoring Tiber's protests. Elara and Kaelen fought alongside her father, using their knowledge of the building's hidden passages and traps to delay Thorn's advance. But they were outnumbered. Thorn cornered Tiber, demanding the map. The old man refused, even as Thorn threatened to harm Elara. In a desperate act of defiance, Tiber activated a hidden mechanism within his desk, triggering a series of illusions that disoriented Thorn and his men. It bought them time, but it also revealed something shocking. As the illusions faded, Elara saw Kaelen standing beside Thorn, a cold smile playing on his lips. He was holding the wooden box aloft, its symbols glowing with an eerie light. "I'm afraid your father's little game ends here," Kaelen said, his voice devoid of emotion. "The obsidian labyrinth will be opened." Elara felt as if her world had shattered. Kaelen hadn't been protecting them. He had been leading Thorn to the map all along. He was a traitor. "Why?" she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Kaelen's eyes met hers, his expression unreadable. "Eridor is dying, Elara. The shadow consumes everything. The power within the labyrinth. It's our only hope." He explained that he had been sent to infiltrate Tiber's workshop, gain his trust, and retrieve the map. He hadn't wanted to hurt them, but the fate of his world depended on it. Elara refused to believe him. She saw the darkness in his eyes, the ruthless ambition that had consumed him. He wasn't a guardian. He was just another collector, willing to sacrifice anything for power. Thorn forced Tiber to reveal the location of the Nexus Point, a hidden cave on the far side of Ethelgard's cliffs. He planned to open it immediately, using a complex ritual that required a specific alignment of constellations and a powerful energy source. Elara, heartbroken and furious, knew she had to stop him. She couldn't let Thorn unleash whatever horrors lay within the obsidian labyrinth upon the world. With the help of a few loyal townsfolk, she devised a plan to sabotage Thorn's ritual. They would disrupt the energy flow, create a diversion, and hopefully buy enough time for Tiber to destroy the map. But Kaelen anticipated their every move. He had foreseen their attempts and laid traps of his own. The ensuing confrontation was brutal and chaotic. Elara fought with a ferocity she didn't know she possessed, using her knowledge of the workshop's defenses to outwit Thorn's men. She finally cornered Kaelen in the cave, just as he was preparing to activate the Nexus Point. "This isn't you," she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "You were kind, compassionate. What happened?" Kaelen shook his head, his eyes filled with pain. "The shadow changes everything, Elara. It whispers promises of salvation, but it demands a price." He raised the wooden box, its symbols pulsing with dark energy. "I have to do this. For Eridor." Elara knew she couldn't reason with him. She had to fight. The battle was fierce and desperate. Kaelen wielded a strange energy that warped reality, creating illusions and summoning shadowy creatures. Elara fought back with everything she had, using her knowledge of the Veil to disrupt his attacks. She realized that the wooden box wasn't just a container, it was a conduit for the shadow itself. It amplified Kaelen's power, but also seemed to be slowly consuming him, twisting his mind and body. During the fight, she noticed something strange about the cave walls. They were covered in intricate carvings, depicting scenes of unimaginable horror. Twisted landscapes, grotesque creatures, and figures writhing in agony. The carvings weren't static. They shifted and changed as if reflecting the thoughts and emotions of those within the cave. "This place, it feeds on despair," Elara realized, her voice trembling. "It amplifies your fears, your regrets." She saw Kaelen falter for a moment, his eyes filled with anguish. The shadow was taking over, eroding his sanity, taking advantage of his vulnerability. She lunged forward, knocking the wooden box from his grasp. It clattered to the ground, its symbols dimming. Kaelen screamed in agony as the energy surged back into him, overwhelming his senses. With the box deactivated, Kaelen collapsed, clutching his head and writhing on the floor. Thorn, enraged by their interference, attacked Elara with a furious onslaught of dark magic. She managed to evade his attacks, but she was weakening. Just as he was about to deliver the final blow, Tiber appeared, wielding a strange artifact, a compass crafted from pure starlight. He activated the compass, unleashing a wave of energy that disrupted Thorn's ritual and shattered the Nexus Point. The cave began to tremble violently, its walls collapsing around them. "The veil is unstable!" Tiber shouted over the roar of the collapsing cave. "We have to get out of here!" They managed to escape just as the cave imploded, burying Thorn and his remaining men beneath tons of rock and debris. But the damage was done. The shattering of the nexus point had created a ripple effect, weakening the boundaries between realities. Alara felt a strange sensation, a blurring of perception, a sense of being pulled in multiple directions at once. She saw glimpses of other worlds, fleeting images of alien landscapes and impossible creatures. The veil was unraveling. In the aftermath of the collapse, Ethelgard was thrown into chaos. Strange phenomena began to occur, objects disappearing and reappearing in different locations, weather patterns shifting unpredictably, and whispers echoing from beyond the known world. Kaelen, weakened but alive, was haunted by guilt and regret. He had failed his people, unleashing a catastrophe upon both Eredor and Ethelgard. He confessed that the shadow wasn't just consuming his world, it was spreading to others, corrupting everything it touched. "There's only one way to stop it," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "We have to find the source of the shadow and destroy it. But finding the source would require venturing into the heart of Eredor, a land now overrun by darkness and ruled by the tyrannical king who had unleashed the shadow in the first place." Alara hesitated. She had lost so much already. Her mother, her father's trust, and the man she thought she knew. But she couldn't stand idly by while the world crumbled around them. She agreed to help him, driven by a desperate hope that they could still save Eredor, and perhaps find redemption for themselves. The journey to Eredor was fraught with peril. They travelled through desolate landscapes ravaged by shadow, encountering mutated creatures and desperate survivors struggling to survive. Kaelen's knowledge of the land proved invaluable, but he was growing weaker with each passing day, his body slowly succumbing to the effects of the shadow. They eventually reached the Shadow King's citadel, a towering fortress built from obsidian and shrouded in darkness. The citadel was guarded by an army of shadowy warriors, their eyes glowing with malevolent intent. Alara and Kaelen infiltrated the citadel, using a hidden passage known only to Kaelen's ancestors. They navigated through labyrinthine corridors, filled with traps and illusions, battling their way towards the Shadow King's throne room. Along the way, they discovered that the Shadow King wasn't just a tyrant. He was a vessel for an ancient entity, a being of pure darkness that had been imprisoned within Eredor centuries ago. The entity had slowly corrupted the king, twisting his mind and body into a monstrous form. They finally reached the throne room, where they confronted the Shadow King. He was a terrifying sight, a hulking figure clad in black armor, his eyes burning with an unholy light. The battle was epic and brutal. Kaelen fought with a desperate ferocity, channeling the last of his energy into powerful attacks. Alara used her knowledge of the Veil to disrupt the Shadow King's magic, creating illusions and exploiting his weaknesses. But they were no match for his power. The Shadow King unleashed a wave of dark energy that knocked them both to the ground. Just as he was about to deliver the final blow, Tiber appeared, wielding the starlight compass once again. He had followed them, driven by guilt and a desperate desire to protect his daughter. He activated the compass, unleashing a blinding light that weakened the Shadow King and shattered his armor. "The Veil isn't just about charting places," he said, his voice trembling with exhaustion. "It's about understanding connections and finding balance." He explained that the shadow wasn't an external force. It was a manifestation of imbalance, a consequence of unchecked ambition and forgotten histories. To defeat it, they had to restore the connection between Eredor and the other worlds, re-establishing the natural order. Alara realized that her father's maps weren't just tools for exploration. They were keys to unlocking the secrets of the Veil. She used her knowledge of the constellations to activate a hidden mechanism within the throne room, creating a vortex that drew energy from multiple realities. The vortex converged on the Shadow King, engulfing him in a blinding light. The entity screamed in agony as its power was stripped away, leaving behind only a frail and broken king. With the shadow defeated, Eriador began to heal. The land slowly recovered, its forests regrowing and its skies clearing. Kaelen, freed from the influence of the darkness, found peace at last. He chose to remain in Eriador, rebuilding his world and guiding his people towards a brighter future. Elara returned to Ethelgard, carrying with her the legacy of her father's craft, a newfound understanding of the Veil, and a determination to protect it from those who would seek to exploit its power. She continued to chart the whispers, knowing that some doors are best left unopened, but also believing that sometimes the greatest discoveries lie beyond the known world. And though she mourned the loss of Kaelen's presence in her life, she knew their connection transcended worlds, a bond forged in darkness and tempered by hope, forever etched into the fabric of the Veil itself. Years later, Elara stood on Ethelgard's cliffs, gazing out at the endless sea. She had become a renowned cartographer in her own right, her maps sought after by scholars and adventurers from across the land. But she didn't chart just land or sea. She charted possibilities, the hidden pathways between realities, the echoes of forgotten worlds, and the delicate balance that held them all together. She had learned to embrace the unknown, knowing that the greatest adventures often lie beyond the boundaries of perception. And sometimes, when the wind was right, she could almost hear a whisper on the breeze, a familiar voice calling her name from across the vast expanse of the Veil. A reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope can endure, and that love, like the stars themselves, can shine through any shadow. She smiled, picking up her quill and beginning to chart a new map, an unwritten story waiting to be discovered, a testament to the enduring power of connection, courage, and the boundless mysteries of the universe.
If you like this story, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Stay tuned for new stories.